Welcome to the Tradie Wife Life podcast. We're back for another episode. I think of the new podcast schedule. We're already up to, this will be episode 11. Holy moly, that's gone quick. Since we rebranded back to the Tradie Wife Life podcast. We're talking with a real tradie today. I had a wonderful conversation over on the Tradies in Business podcast with a lovely young man called Mike Ross. Rachel's probably screwing up her nose at this point in time, as all good sisters do. We had a fantastic conversation. Mike is a champion mountain bike rider. I'm still blown away by the kind of stuff that he does. We had a really interesting chat about his trade career and what he is doing now, which is very different to his trade career. And he happened to mention right at the end of the episode, or it might have even been off air, that he has this amazingly cool sister who is a carpenter doing incredible work. We've just had a quick chat off air. So we reached out to Rachel, and Rachel has kindly agreed to be here with us. Hello, Rachel. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good to be here.
I'm very pleased to have you. We can dish dirt on our brothers. I don't know that I like my brother quite as much as you like yours. Rachel, tell us a little bit about how you came to be a carpenter. That's a different career path than many of us are told we're meant to have when we're young. So I'd love to hear about how that became an option for you.
I've always wanted to become a tradie. I grew up with my brother and my dad becoming a tradie, although probably it was against my mum's wishes. But I went and did, I worked for an insurance company for a year before starting my apprenticeship. So I did the sit-down desk job like mum wanted. And at the end of that, she could tell I wasn't enjoying it. So then I went off and chose to be a carpenter. I've always been handy with my hands. I remember building a deck down the coast, and I built a little table out of the leftover scraps that Dad had after finishing, and so cool. Painted it all up, which I think is still down there today. But so that's just how I rolled with it. And I'm a project manager, which is pretty cool. But yeah, very career driven to get to this point, and hasn't been easy, but I got here.
I think I referenced when we were talking to Mike, actually I might have said it 100 times because I was talking with my mum hat on, and I'll try and take that off today, just how incredible your parents must be to have brought up, both of you are really level-headed. You're incredibly driven in your chosen passions and careers. I am blown away by how quickly you have progressed in your career at your tender age of, is it okay if I say?
Yeah, fine.
You're 25. You're just a little tiny baby still, at least from where I sit as well. And it's incredible to think that you've gone, so you first year out of school, you spent a year at a desk job. From there, you did your apprenticeship, which is typically 4 years. And in that time since then, you've grown your career all the way up to project manager, which is an incredible career trajectory for anybody, much less a female in what is still a very male-dominated industry. It can be challenging. Rachel, I have my own journey in the trades, and none of it was particularly easy. There were the good times and bad times, and I'm not a tradie, so I'm really interested to hear, how did you find it? Like, even starting with the interviews for your apprenticeship, etc. What was that whole process like?
It was very challenging. I guess my interview was sort of my first real job interview. I did gymnastics when I was younger, and my first job was coaching gymnastics. And from there, family friend had a insurance company, so I went and worked for them. And so it was sort of like a first real interview, which was pretty scary. But they got me on the basis that I'd actually been doing gymnastics for over 10 years. So they saw the commitment that I had to gymnastics, and they thought, that's really good commitment, so she'd get through it, which was awesome. I did it through Master Builders, which they give you 2 different hosts. So you work for a few different companies throughout your apprenticeship, sorry.
How did you find that, Rachel? I have some views on apprentices, and I should preface that by saying I've had a lot of apprentices in my time. So I have a building company. I've had a lot of apprentices in my time. I also judge the HIA Apprenticeship Awards. So I've dealt with a lot of apprentices. And and I have my own feelings on that kind of structure. And I think for some people it can be fantastic, and for others it can be really challenging. How did you find it?
Look, I was shit scared on my first day, that's for sure. Um, but the guys that I was working with, they were fantastic. Like, I broke the boss's nail gun on the first day, which is a bit scary. But look, they were just such a good team and just so supportive. And as long as I was getting in there and having a go, it didn't seem to mind them. And look, there was a few people that sort of just had to have a double take, but yeah, no, it was awesome. A few of the other companies were a bit more sort of stand back-ish. I'm not sure whether that was just because they're not used to it, or they're just watching their words a bit more because it's not just boys here. And yeah, it was very interesting though to see how different people react.
And then the concept of moving from employer to employer, was that hard? Because I think in any of those situations, we all work a little differently. We have different procedures and set up even on site. Was that challenging for you to adapt to? Do you think that was a benefit?
Yes and no. Like, it was good in the sense of you got a bit of a mix between commercial projects and residential projects, which was great. But I was with the first company for about a year and a half. And then I went to, I think, 2 others after that throughout the apprenticeship. So it was actually really good. And you got to hang out with different types of people and learn different ways to do the same thing as well, which was really beneficial.
Totally. You referenced something before about holding back on language, etc. on site. And we were having a laugh off air. Dad's a plasterer. I always wanted to be a plasterer. And he wouldn't let me go to site because all the men would swear. So if I got to go to be on a Saturday morning and I was allowed to sweep up the plaster dust, still the best plaster sweeper ever. And I can mix the buckets and clean them out just fine for 50 cents a bucket. And it was a real fear for my dad, right? Like, and I'm much, much older than you, almost double your age. And I have spent a lot of time on site now as a woman. And I do see a shift in behaviour, at least in the first instance when I arrive on site. So if it's a team that I've been working with for a while, they just carry on the way they always do it.
100%.
Business as usual. If I arrive on site and there's a new subby or there's a new team member or something similar, you can feel that real shift. Did you have those kind of experiences as well?
Yeah, definitely. They sort of try and find where that line is.
Yeah.
And it's like straight away they're like, yeah, cool, no worries. Then they just carry on. And yeah, it is pretty good. Like, I guess having a brother, it really makes you more sort of, you get along better with the boys than the girls. That's what I've found in my experience. So, it's just like I'm one of the boys and they just carry on. It's great.
Yeah, it's so simple being that boys. Did you have to adapt any part of your personality to find your space in those workplaces?
Not really.
Yeah.
I sort of just, felt like I was myself the entire way through the apprenticeship, which was great. Yeah.
You must have good hosts.
Yeah, no, they were great.
Yeah, I think that makes a really big difference for you to then find your confidence in what you're able to do and your role, so that when you do come across those sometimes old-fashioned views, you can they're still going to knock your confidence to some extent. However, it's not going to be really detrimental because you know who you are and you know what you're capable of, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I had one guy when I was a foreman. He was very old school and he was basically trying to tell me how to do my job. And I just got to the point of, mate, like, that's not how you do it these days. And to the point where my boss at the time, like, came in and basically sat him down to tell him to, shut his mouth. And from then, though, we moved on and happy days.
Please.
Yeah. So that was really the only sort of hard interaction, I guess, I had with like an old timer.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So to speak, yeah.
Did you have anyone ever challenge your strength or your ability, your physical ability?
Not really. There was just a comment made that, we were putting windows in and they just wanted me to lift a bit more. I was like, I can only lift as much as I can, but anyway, and but I just got in and tried to do a bit more, and
yeah,
that was that. As long as it looked like I was having a decent go,
yeah,
I wasn't just trying to play it off or put it on.
So would you agree then on a good work side where you have a good team surrounding you that your attitude is what determines the outcomes more so than the external people?
Yeah, definitely.
And totally different if you happen to come across an old thinking team. It's very different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not so easy. Can we go back to gymnastics? So this blew my mind when we were talking earlier. You did do gymnastics for 10 years, did you say?
Oh, yeah, since I was probably 5 till about 20. So I was still doing it when I started my apprenticeship.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like you to tell all our listeners what kind of gymnastics, because it really is polar opposite to what you were.
Yes. So I did rhythmic gymnastics, which is with the ribbons and the hoop and the balls.
Stuff.
Yeah, all the pretty gymnastics.
I think that it was fantastic. And I can see how those skills actually become transferable to what you're doing in your carpentry career.
Yeah, well, I was very hand-eye coordinated
Yes.
by the end of that. So yeah.
I bet you could bend and stretch into places that other guys couldn't. And
Yeah, I definitely got all the small spots, that's for sure.
absolutely. And then there'd be a different way of cognitive thinking that maybe some of the other people on site weren't able to bend their brains to do. And I also feel like there's a real trend at the moment for masculine type sports that aren't typically then interested in flexibility and, there's core movements. I see a lot now. I see a lot of football. I have a particular interest in Pilates. I see lots of highly professional football players doing things like Pilates now to increase their own skill set in those areas. And you arrive on site and you've already got them 15 years worth. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Rachel, tell us about what you're doing now, because carpentry isn't the only thing that you do in your life. You do some other things that really challenge the stereotypical norms. For example, where you live and what you do where you live. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, so I grew up, like my uncle had a farm and my nan and pop had a farm, which was great. So, my brother and I would spend lots of time, especially on the weekends, at their farms, just riding motorbikes and, doing all the fun kid stuff that you do. But now I actually live on property, which is great. And we have some cows, which is really fun. We have to chop wood and to get the fire going to heat the place now, and it's a very different lifestyle to living in town, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We have to, I commute 50 minutes to work every day, which doesn't sound like a lot from someone that's in Sydney, but in Canberra it's quite a lot when you don't have any traffic. But yeah, so we have to fix fences, make sure the cows are all healthy, and keep that cycle moving, which is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it is really cool. Do you eat your cows?
We haven't yet, but we do have one earmarked for this year.
Maybe I should have had Warwick on this episode because his cows. I can't. No, I lived on property also for a time, and I was there with my first husband's parents, and they had little cows like Dexter cows, and they used to eat them, and I could never come to the point of eating something that had a name.
Yeah, see, the trick is you don't name them, but my partner's got 3 girls and they named this one Dinner. So,
I love that. At least we got the head right from the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's also good to teach these girls like how the world works and the life cycle.
Absolutely, it's really different, and I think city kids now are more sheltered than ever before. The
100%.
opportunity to get back to country is really limited, and
Yeah.
unless you're doing it on a hobby farm, or like a petting zoo or something similar, those kinds of farms don't always, and some of them do. I'm speaking in quite broad statements here, so perhaps I won't. Many of them do not allow the opportunity to see what real farm life is like, because real farm life is actually quite hard. It's tough.
It's hard. Yeah, definitely.
A lot of hard work. There are early days, late nights. When you're relying on the land for your income, it's really unpredictable. You're at the mercy.
Yeah,
sounds a lot like building, actually, when you think.
Yeah.
It can be really, really challenging. So I think it's great that the kids have that opportunity to learn about what real life is like from the outset.
I don't think they know how lucky they have it yet, but I'm sure it'll come around to them at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Rachel, it takes a lot of resilience to do what you do. And, even if we refer that back to your annoying older brother, and you didn't say that word, I did, and he'll give me a dig back in return. And I know brothers, they're all annoying. You guys both have a lot of resilience in your chosen careers. Mike, as now a professional writer, that takes a lot of time. He was telling us he did his apprenticeship and he was working, his normal full-time week's like 40 hours, and then he would spend many, many, many more hours, like 2 or 3 hours at the end of each day, then training for what he does as well. So you guys both have an incredible amount of strength, mental toughness and resilience. And I wonder, where do you think that has come from?
Definitely our parents. They're both so hard driven.
Yeah.
They're really awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I remember like in my first year of my apprenticeship, like both my brother and I would be leaving the house at, 6 o'clock in the morning to get to site, but both of us wouldn't come home till, 7, 8 o'clock at night by the time we finished, bike riding, and then I had my training for gymnastics. So yeah, we were just long days, but we just got up and did it again. And that's exactly what mum and dad do. They just get over it and
move on.
Keep pushing through. Yeah.
Removing excuses. So I wonder, okay, so I'm pretty sure most of our listeners know, but if they don't, I've got 5 children. And one of the things you see a lot with children, and I'm going to relate this back to apprentices and sometimes team, thinking that most of the people listening are business owners. What I see frequently is the excuse. So we had a swimmer, and it was pretty common for him to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and have an excuse around why he wasn't going to go to swimming that day. I presume you guys, at least in the early days, and maybe you can't remember, maybe it was too long ago, there must have been times when you had excuses for not wanting to do something around your gymnastics or even pushing through with your apprenticeship, etc. How did your mum and dad help you deal with those times? Can you recall?
Not exactly. I just don't remember any, like both my brother and I not having any excuses for doing anything that we loved. Like we obviously had excuses not to go to school. I remember once my nan and pop actually were looking after us, or looking after my brother, I think, and he somehow conned him into letting him stay home from school just so he could go to the bike park for the day. And that's what he did. So I didn't get that opportunity yet, I didn't think. But
that's not fair.
I don't remember us making excuses though as kids. Like we never really fought either between the two of us. I just wanted to do whatever he was doing.
Yeah. Cool older brother.
Yeah.
Is he still
Especially when he got his license.
Yeah, as we all do. Is he still cool, or is he annoying now that he's older?
No, he's cool.
He's pretty cool.
He's chill. Yeah.
Rachel, I don't think you've chosen an easy career path, and I reckon you've got some real nuggets of advice in there for any other young ladies that are listening around, I guess, pushing through some of those tough times. Did you have tough times? What did they look like if you did, and how did you push through?
Look, you definitely, the support around you is definitely a key aspect to how you push through those tough times. I had good people that worked around me, which was awesome. So if another trade, gave it to me, they were always there to back me up and support me, which was great. The MBA as well was a good way to go, especially for a girl, because you could get a really bad company and straight away they'll move you if you're having troubles with them, which is great. But definitely your at-home life has to be supportive.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for employers that are considering putting on an apprentice and they hadn't really before considered that maybe a female apprentice could be a way to go?
I wouldn't hold back. Yeah. That'd be my advice. Just don't hold back, give them the chance. And make sure they make that line of where constructive criticism comes in and to how far to go with that as well.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
It can be very challenging. I think that should be an awakening for all employers, no matter who they employ. I think times have changed. And when I think about feedback from my brother around his apprenticeship, even though he did it with my dad. Maybe I'm outing my dad here a bit, but some of the shit he copped on site, etc., could be quite challenging. The way he was spoken to by other trades was challenging. The way I've heard on site, people talking to one another is it wouldn't work in a corporation, or it wouldn't work at Woolworths or McDonald's or something like that. And for some reason, trades have thought that at times, perhaps through frustration, that it's appropriate to talk pretty disparagingly to somebody.
Yeah.
And it's not beneficial. It's not conducive to creating the change that they're probably looking for in the first place. So I think there's a great piece of advice to think about the way you speak. Rachel, did you find, like, we have physical differences to men, of course, and one of the things I'll out myself, as pretentious or ridiculous as this might make me sound, I don't like site toilets. They're bloody horrible. They're the most disgusting places in the world. How do you deal with that?
So I remember one site, it was one of my first bigger sites that I was on, and they had a whole toilet block placed on site, which was actually quite nice, but it was the males. So I was like, oh, well, give me a toilet then. I was the only girl on site at that point. So they gave me a portaloo. It got to the point where they were going to lock it, but then they didn't. The plasterers ended up just using it. So I was just like, oh, I'll just use the men's toilet then. Just
you're a girl. That's incredible.
I'd rather use that than a portaloo, but
they're the worst.
Yeah.
Can't stand them. I don't know anyone that would say they were right up there, the top of the tree, something you'd want to use. Rachel, thinking about site and other people that you're working with, did you ever run into many other women on site?
There was a few, mainly in the electrical field.
Yep.
I feel like there's a lot in the electrical field. I'm not sure why, but there was one other girl in my class for carpentry, which was great to see. But yeah, she was from the building. Like, her dad was a builder too. So, but I didn't really see much. I didn't really see as many as what I think there should be.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we've spoken about what it might look like for an employer to take on a female apprentice. Do you think there's a pathway here that the schools could be playing to get more ladies into the trades? I still feel like it's not done well. There are certainly some sectors of our country that do it a little better than others, but I feel like there's a bigger opportunity for us here in the trade space.
Yeah. It depends on what school you go to. For example, like the school that I went to, you had to do, it was compulsory to do a term of woodwork, a term of metal work in year 7, I think it was. And then after that, it was sort of an elective, but and then when you get into college, it's an elective to do automotive and those sorts of things. That was just at my school. I'm not entirely sure on how they work it with other schools around the region, but look, I think it's really important that they do more than just a term of it. You don't really get a good feel of what it could be like.
And was a vocational education pathway ever made available to you? So the opportunity for you to do a school-based apprenticeship or something similar?
Yeah, it was available. At that point, I didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I took that gap year working at the insurance company, and I went to Europe for 2 months as well during that. So just to have a think about what exactly I wanted to do. I did 1 day at work with my dad and did not go back. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was younger. I do remember picking my year 11 and 12 subjects that I had to pick to do a tertiary degree. Like, to do the tertiary side, I had to pick only one accredited course. It was between PE and woodwork, so I chose PE. It was fun. They had cool excursions.
Yeah, they do. Very cool. Rachel, what does the future hold for you? Like, in a short 25 years, so what, you would have been 17 when you left school, you spent a year working in an office job, that's 18. And then since you were about 18, 19 through to 25, not only have you finished your apprenticeship, you've worked your way all the way up to being a project manager. I can't even begin to imagine what comes next for you.
I don't think anything. I'll just float here for a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I do really want to just sink my teeth in this role and just try and get to the best that I can be in this role. Just see what happens at the end of it.
That's amazing. And maybe a little bit of travel on your brother's coattails so you can watch him do his sick tricks and all kinds of
things. I went to Cairns to see him earlier this year. Yeah, that was my first time sort of traveling to see him compete like that, which was awesome. But yeah, hopefully I can get to another overseas trip next year to watch him.
And goodness,
that'd be great.
Open again. Did
Yeah.
it inspire you to get on the bike and give it a crack?
Look, I own a bike.
That's fantastic.
Riding it, on the other hand, it's a little bit hard to get some time
Yeah.
to do that.
Wow, and you're running a farm as well. That's not easy at all, is it?
No. Yeah, it's very busy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for sharing some of those insights. I think it's important that most of the people that listen to the podcast are business owners, and they have a fantastic opportunity to encourage females in the trades. I think we need more there. I don't want to get into the male versus female debate, and I feel like we both have a role to play on site. There's great opportunities for all of us as a strength for the companies that might be listening. So you've given some really good insights. Please, anybody that is listening, if you have a female on site, please get them their own toilet. Just do it. Really important. So please consider that. Rachel, it's been fantastic speaking with you. Great insight. I'm really intrigued by the polarity from gymnastics over to carpentry and the pretty stuff and the hard, meaty stuff. That's a fantastic transition. And I really feel like your parents should go into writing parenting books because you two kids are just amazing.
They've done a good job.
They certainly have. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you for having me.
Pleasure.